Now these other stories from the Contemporary News Desk. Well, the Beatles are still a quartet. Rumors for the past few days that Paul McCartney was dead came to a head yesterday. The problem became so bad that McCartney had to release a statement showing he was alive and well. McCartney said, "If I were dead, I'd be the last to know."
I was going to say something. Yeah, the whole agenda is like that. To me, it's the Aleister Crowley element. You know, what part does he have to play in this mystical, this transformation of society? He seems to be the guy that's inspired, shall we say, you know, a lot of this new age and the new religion and do what you will, almost the kind of anarchy that's not real anarchy. It's people think they can do anything without consequences. Or and people say Aleister Crowley's misinterpreted, you know, and he's actually not as bad as they make out and stuff like that. What's your view on Aleister Crowley and his influence on the music world?
Crowley's an interesting character, and I know there are folks, there are people in the alternative research community who believe that he wasn't very important. He was a carnival barker, you know. He's just he's out there as a distraction. But I disagree with that. You know, Crowley was very much tied into the elite system. He was working with British intelligence going back to World War One. There's a great book out there. It's Secret Agent 666. If you get a chance to read that book, it lays it all out as far as his involvement in British intelligence. And you know, some would argue that even though he was getting on in age, his intelligence work also went into the Second World War. He was an occultist. He was an accomplished occultist and magician. It's interesting, you know, I have a person that I converse with every once in a while, and they are very, very knowledgeable in the occult. And he said, you know, Crowley knew a lot. He didn't know everything, they said, but he knew a lot. And Crowley's influence, in my mind, can't be understated. It all goes back to Egypt. That's, you know, that's where he received his channeling from his spirit guide, Awas, to write the Book of the Law. And the Book of the Law is really the holy text of his religion, Thelema. And that's where we get "Do as thou wilt." And Crowley and Crowleyites, Thelemites will say that "do as thou wilt" does not mean that you can go around abusing people and hurting people and all that stuff. That's what they will say. But that's an interesting take on it, because Crowley, in one of his papers, I think it was book 77, I think it was, he clearly says at the end, anybody that gets in the way of you living your will, you have a right to kill them. Okay. So Crowleyites and Crowley will say that the current system, or the system that was in place, is oppressive and it's rules laden, and that is keeping humanity from being liberated and unshackled. And we need to live free, and we need to follow our will and do whatever it is that we want to do in life without being constrained or inhibited by some patriarchal system. So Crowley, you know, his eons, he had, you know, there was the eon of Isis, but then there was the eon of Osiris, which loosely correlates with the Piscean age. And then he was putting in place his eon of Horus, which we can overlay the age of Aquarius with that. I mean, they're not exact matches as far as beginning and end, but there is significant overlap between, as an example, his eon of Osiris and the Piscean age, and his eon of Horus and the age of Aquarius, which is what we have entered into. A lot of occultists will say that the formal start of the age of Aquarius began on December 12th of 2012. And that was what all the Mayan calendar hoopla was about, right? It was camouflaged under the Mayan calendar, but what they were really saying it was the end of the Piscean age and the beginning of the age of Aquarius. Crowley will say that his age or his eon of Horus began in the early 1900s, and then there's a slow, gradual ramping up into that age.
Blavatsky and all that kind of stuff. Just
yeah, right. Going back to all of that, and so Crowley was very, very influential that way, and Memoirs tells us that many within the Pyramid of Power are adherents to Crowley's religion of Thelema, which is Luciferianism. Okay, so when people say that Luciferianism doesn't have a holy text, I would argue that that's not true. That the basis of modern day Luciferianism, what we're seeing today, is entrenched in Crowley. It's entrenched in his work, his Book of the Law, his writings, his philosophy, his spirituality, and so on. Right. So that's what we're seeing, and Thelemites, Crowleyites, Luciferians, they believe that you must develop your inner will. That's first and foremost. And then you create an external world that mirrors your internal will. It's not the other way around. Whereas most of the population do it the other way around. They take the external environment, the external world, and then they assimilate that and they bring that in. And they think that that's who they are on the inside. And some of them are not even smart enough to understand what your will is, right? But I'll just say that becomes their will. But it's not your will. What
I'm
you're doing,
I'm a Rangers fan, but that's been given to you, so you identify as that.
Exactly. So what you've done is you've actually consented to accepting somebody else's will and living an existence in accordance to what they have laid out. And when I say they, I'm talking about the controllers. And since the controllers' philosophy of Thelema, of Crowleyism, of Luciferianism says that the establishment of your inner will is the most important thing you can do. That's what they're doing. So when we take a look at what's going on in the world, that's a manifestation of their will, of what they want to do. And what they want to do is they want to tear down the existing structure, because what they really are is they are Egyptian mystery zealots. They're Egyptian mystery fanatics. That's their religion. And they believe in order to change, in order to make change, transformation, you have to go through alchemical stages. So the Negredo stage is what we're going through now. Negredo is essentially the obliteration, the taking out of existing structures, because the alchemists and the occultists believe that you cannot do anything new if remnants of the old still exist. So the old systems, the old ways, the old belief systems have to be eradicated. They have to be erased.
Hence the Christianity getting taken down.
Yes, right. So Christianity was in the way. That's why the Illuminati, or the controllers, whatever name you want to give them, they declared war on Christianity on September 11th of 1962.